Hi, and welcome to the Global Education Group's CME video blog, where we address emerging hot topics in the CME enterprise and bring them to you. Today we're going to talk about the issues of errors and omissions in a New England Journal of Medicine editorial on CME. Now, several of our past blogs have identified the continued confusion between accredited CME and other forms of education, as well as a lack of understanding about the current rules and guidelines that ensure independence in CME. Well, today we're going to talk about substantial clarification that's going to be required for an opinion piece in the March 22nd issue of the New England Journal of Medicine. Now, the article attacks industry grant funding for accredited CME, but there are several errors and omissions in three main areas. The first is that the editorial cites 5 sources for its claim, but a main source cited was completely discredited more than 4 years ago. The editorial states, quote, "A series of influential reports and policy papers have recommended major new restrictions on industry funding, with some proposing the complete elimination of industry support of CME," end quote. Now, that source is a 4-year-old Macy Foundation conference report. And you may recall that the Macy Foundation is a group that actually flew a group of academics to Bermuda for a weekend with the goal of discrediting grant support for CME. Now, after analyzing that conference and the report that came out of that, the ACCME, as well as the ACPE, the Board for Pharmacy Education, as well as the ANCC, the Board for Nursing Education, they analyzed that conference in its report, and here's what they concluded. Quote, "Neither the conference, its observations, its assumptions, its conclusions, nor its recommendations seem to be based on the facts." So, to quote a report that has been so discredited is not only bad science, but it's misleading. Second, the editorial in the New England Journal of Medicine is based on really outdated opinions that are no longer valid. Now, a lot has changed in CME over the past 5 to 7 years. There's new ACCME accreditation criteria. There are updated standards ensuring that conflicts of interest are both disclosed but then resolved prior to any CME activities. And there are content validation requirements that ensure independence. But still, the editorial provides quotes that are based on outdated opinions. Quoting the editorial, it states, quote, "The existing system provides incentives for developing symposia focused on drug therapy so as to attract industry sponsors. But the evidence simply shows that this is false. Several major societies in the last few years have completely revamped their guidelines for satellite symposia, including ASCO, ASH, as well as the American College of Cardiology. In addition, the facts show that the number of symposia and funding for symposia have actually dramatically declined in the past several years. So there are, in fact, no incentives for developing these types of symposia mentioned in the editorial." Now, last, the editorial simply contradicts science, and this is probably the biggest problem in the editorial. It ignores the evidence base. The editorial states that there are issues about quality and conflict of interest related to the issue of potential bias in CME. Now, these are serious matters and deserve attention, but there's an abundance of evidence that simply is ignored or simply not addressed in the editorial. 2 studies. First, the Cleveland Clinic seminal study. 95,000 physician CME participants were surveyed, and 98% of them indicated that there was no bias in CME that was either funded with industry grant support or not funded with industry grant support. An even larger study in 2009, conducted by Medscape, there were more than 1 million physician participants. And again, they surveyed folks who went to CME activities that were funded with CME grant support from industry, and those that went to CME activities that were not funded with grant support. Out of 1 million participants, less than 1% indicated any bias in either type of activity. Actually, to address the facts, a little bit more of the participants of non-funded CME indicated that there was bias than those that were talking about the funded CME. So this kind of leads us to the question of why would scientific journal editors besmirch the New England Journal of Medicine's reputation with an editorial that has so many errors and omissions? Well, some readers have speculated. Are they looking for more ad revenue from pharmaceutical organizations? After all, the New England Journal of Medicine's own website says that it is, quote, the cornerstone of advertising for medical marketers. Perhaps the New England Journal of Medicine is unaware that CME has radically changed for the better since 2007. Or, as one reader speculated, perhaps the editors are a little bit scared that journals are threatened by more online, transparent sources such as Wikipedia, and perhaps they may go the way of Encyclopedia Britannica, which recently announced no more print editions. Well, whatever the reason, physicians and CME stakeholders simply deserve better. If the New England Journal of Medicine cares about good science, look for a retraction or clarification in the coming weeks. As always, if you have any questions about this issue or any other issues in CME, feel free to contact us here at globaleducationgroup.com. For Global, I'm Stephen Lewis.